Arsenal take on Liverpool. Are we about to find out who are going to be Manchester City's biggest contenders? Arsenal have this sort of injury crisis that's been going around. We're going to talk about that. Liverpool are this side that are currently the best team in the league, according to some people, even though Arne Slot has personally said they haven't played anyone decent. So is this the first time they play someone really decent? Harry's with me. Kweku's with me. Harry, let's start with you. This injury crisis, a lot of rumours are going around. What are Arsenal going to look like going into this game?
It's really difficult to tell at the moment because there are so many players who are doubts going into this game. Arsenal fans will be hoping that Saka returns. They'll be hoping that Julian Timber's fit because Arsenal have got a problem at the back if he's not, with Saliba's suspension. And we think Calafiori's going to be out as well. What does he do in the midfield? How does he set up the shape? There's so many questions because he tried to play a little bit differently at Bournemouth last weekend and it didn't really work. That trio of Rice, Partey and Mourinho didn't have a creative bone in his body, basically. And I think that really, really showed in the game. In midweek, he went back to playing the kind of two false nines of Trossard and Havertz and what looks more like a 4-4-2 system. And although Arsenal didn't blow Shakhtar away, they did look a lot more competent. So I think the key to this game from an Arsenal perspective is who's fit. If everybody that we think is going to come back does come back, then there's no reason why Arsenal can't go out there and put on a show. But if that isn't the case against a very good Liverpool side, then I think Arsenal fans are right to be wary.
I think this becomes even more interesting when you factor in Liverpool's form going into this game. And I was speaking to an Arsenal fan yesterday, and he was saying to me that considering Arsenal's injury crisis, Liverpool are the favourites for this game. Then I looked at the head-to-head. Liverpool have actually only won one of the last 5 meetings between the two teams. But let's say, for example, Ødegaard is injured, obviously Saliba's suspended. Let's say Saka comes back. But with them two out, are Liverpool actually favourites?
Yeah, I think Liverpool clear favourites.
Really? At Arsenal?
No, I do. And I've always contended that Arsenal are Man City's biggest challengers. But I saw it firsthand last week in terms of Liverpool. And the thing about Liverpool, they've not faced stress this season. They've just got the job done efficiently. And I was going through Arsenal's fixtures, and barring the Wolves game at the beginning of the season when you won 2-0 pretty comfortably, every game has involved a bit of stress, whether that's mental, whether that's physical. You look at the Villa game where they outplayed you, but you got the job done at Villa Park, which is a very difficult place to go. Brighton game go down to 10 men. Spurs is your biggest rivals, so there's that mental, physical stress there. We know what happened in the City game, one of the most dramatic games of the season. Leicester game, you're 2-0 up, but then conceded 2 goals and had to come back again in that one. Went 1-0 behind against Southampton and then lost against Bournemouth. There's always been drama of Arsenal this season. And last year, you kind of eliminated that, and having to deal with those injuries as well as what's going on when it comes to VAR and Arsenal fans having that bone in contention. It's been a lot of stress on Arsenal this year, and it's a bit too much. We're only in October. Whereas I look at Liverpool, and barring the loss against Nottingham Forest, it's been pretty plain sailing for them. So they go into this game, I feel there's one team that are fairly rested, very healthy, and there's another team in Arsenal who've got their backs up, got injury issues, and I think that might come to haunt Arsenal at the Emirates on the weekend. But both of these sides are very, very good football teams. So I'm expecting a good game, but I think Liverpool going to this one, to answer your question, as clear favourites.
I don't think you could put Liverpool as favourites, given that it's at the Emirates. And I think Arsenal have shown over the last couple of seasons that they're ready for the big games. That if they need to turn up and sit a little bit deeper and protect themselves, they will do that. If they want to be on the front foot, they will do that. And I know you said that Liverpool haven't been under great stress this year, and I completely agree. But they will be at points on Sunday. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. Whatever way Mikel Arteta goes, Liverpool will be under duress at points in that game at the Emirates. So I know that Arsenal have got their injury problems, and I know that's a concern, and I know we're all sitting here scratching our heads as to how they're going to approach it. But I do put some validity in the point that people keep making about Liverpool, which is that they haven't really been tested yet. Now, that's not their fault. So it shouldn't be a stick that you beat them with. But you look at the teams that they've played, and it's been pretty plain sailing, as you say. When I look through Arsenal's results, yes, the Leicester game was a lot more stressful than it needed to be. The Southampton game too. But then you think that Arsenal are only 3 points worse off than they were at this same stage last season. But they've been away to Villa, away to Manchester City, away to Tottenham. In the first 8 games last season, they played United, they played City, and they played Tottenham. But all of those games were at home. They've had to go and do those games on the road. They've been down to 10 men 3 times in their 8 Premier League games. And they've got these injuries to contend with, and they're still there, which I think is a positive rather than a reason to not have them as favourites.
But see, that's my issue. Like, I completely agree. Arsenal's first 5 games this season was the toughest run that any team had in the Premier League, and came out of it fairly unscathed when it came into results. But the Leicester, Southampton, and Bournemouth games were supposed to be stress-free, and there's been stress in all of those games. And we've seen injuries, and we've seen suspensions in those games that were tucked away at 3 o'clock. The eyes of the world weren't watching. That was supposed to be gimmies for Arsenal, and you did win 2 out of the 3, but the loss against Bournemouth was a poor one, unfortunately. And again, you had your, in my opinion, most important player sent off, and he's missing for this game, which I think is a huge net negative.
Let's talk
Arsenal.
about that situation, because you mentioned the defence before, and when I look at that defence, for me, Saliba's obviously been outstanding. I'm actually of the opinion Gabriel's been better over the last 18 months, but no one's talking about it. But I do think...
You love Gabriel.
No, I'm quite the opposite, actually. I was so against him, and I actually love Saliba in terms of like who I prefer as a player more than Gabriel. And I do think in this defence, Saliba in like the Van Dijk way holds people's hands.
Yes.
And I think when you get rid of that, now we'll see a different side of Gabriel, because now if it is Darwin or Jota, which we will talk about, he's going to get dragged around. And then I go, if Zinchenko's at left back, that entire side where Mo Salah ripped Chelsea to shreds regardless of what they put in front of him, as an Arsenal fan, I'm going, that needs to be dealt with. Would you, and I was thinking about this before, would you play Timber at left back? Because Salah tends to struggle against right-footed left backs because he always wants to come inside. Because I also look at Arsenal and Arteta and I think, generally this season, pragmatism is the way he will go with. And generally against Liverpool, pragmatism is the way he goes with.
Yeah, I think that will be in his mind. I think what he's done this season is when Arsenal have been under duress, as Kweku put it, what they've done is thought, right, we haven't quite got that creative spark that we need right now with no Saka and no Odegaard. So let's lean on what our strength is, which is being defensively sound. So I do think that will be at the forefront of his mind. I would be tempted to play Timber at left back if he's available, of course, because he's done that job very, very well. And I think in those one-on-one situations, he's probably better equipped to deal with Mo Salah than a Kivior would be, because we think Calafiori's out, or a Zinchenko would be. But then you weaken the centre of the defence. So you've got a decision to make here. Do you place so much emphasis on Mo Salah that you potentially weaken the centre? Because to put Kivior at right centre-back, which is what would happen if Timber was to play left-back, that is risky. He looked really bad at Bournemouth when he came on. He made that horrible mistake for Bournemouth's second goal. And he just doesn't seem to fit into that role. So it's a big decision.
But you've had first-hand experience literally a week ago of what Salah can do regardless of who you put out there. And I think we're probably at a point where if Arsenal want to absolutely not lose this game, he's the person you have to stop.
100%. It was a quiet game for Mo Salah. He got a goal and assist. Imagine if that's where, again, it's not about Chelsea at all, but that's where the difference in Mo Salah and difference in someone like Cole Palmer is. If Cole Palmer provided that assist that Mo Salah did to Curtis Jones, we're waxing lyrical about it, but because it's Mo Salah, he goes under the radar. He can hurt you, like you say, without doing much in the game. And so you've got to keep him quiet. And for me, I'm looking at this Arsenal side, and I really do like the competition of this Arsenal side when everyone's fit. But in defence, you've got issues because Calafiori and Saliba are out. Midfield, you saw, was a big issue last week. And then going forward, the players that make it tick for you are Saka and Odegaard, who are injury doubts. And so when I look at this Arsenal team in comparison to this Liverpool team, who are ticking, who could rest players in midweek in the Champions League, I just think that it's night and day. And not in terms of quality of the sides, I think they're very, very similar. But in terms of the form that they're going into this game with, I think Liverpool are riding the crest of a wave when it comes to confidence. And Arsenal's hallmark has been their defensive solidity over the last couple of seasons. But you look at the last 4 games, Arsenal conceded at least 2 goals in the league anyway. And so that's kind of fallen down a little bit. If you look at the City game, you know what happened there. The Leicester game and the Bournemouth game conceded 2 goals in all of those. And so I think Arsenal are going to really, really struggle in this one. And this is a Liverpool team that, with the attacking talents of a Diaz, of a Jota if he plays, of a Salah, going to have too much.
I do also look at the central area for Liverpool and going, Jota loves playing against Arsenal.
He absolutely loves it.
Yeah, this is his fixture. Darwin is, even in midweek, he's improving. And there's features in his game that now are making him better rounded. And I actually look at this game and go, because Arsenal have this mismatch back form, I think you start Darwin and say, terrorise the centre-back playing next to Gabriel. The only problem with Darwin is, and you would have seen this last week against Chelsea, he wants to fight with the guy you shouldn't fight with. And I think Jota's really clever like that. Like, he'll peel to the back post if Timber's playing right back and go, I can probably jump on him. That is an interesting area for Liverpool, and probably the only area that's really going to be contested. I think Diaz starts over Gakpo. Curtis Jones was outstanding against Chelsea, but I don't think Liverpool can lose Szoboszlai. Arsenal will have a lot of defensive work to do. How do Arsenal score? I feel like every time we talk about Arsenal this season, it's always defensively they're sound. Corners, is that the way you win this game? Is that the way you go on to show that you are the main title contenders?
Well, set pieces have been a massive weapon for Arsenal in the last couple of seasons. There's no doubt about that. They've improved so much in that department. But I feel like Martinelli's come back into form, and I don't think that's been talked about enough. Defensively, he's brilliant. He gives you so much work, so much up and down. He's an outlet. I think if you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold wanting to go into different areas, what Martinelli's going to do is stay high and wide and demand that Liverpool at least pay attention to him. So that's one way I think that they can stretch them. If Saka plays, he's an obvious threat. Kai Havertz is the biggest threat, though, for Arsenal 100%. Right now. No one wants to talk about him because people still have this debate around whether he's actually good enough to play up front for Arsenal. He is absolutely good enough. And in a situation like the situation Arsenal are in now, where they've had to adapt the way they play, he offers them the ability to go longer, more direct. He offers them the ability to run in behind. And he can drop back and become a part of that midfield with Rice and Partey and make it really combative. And I actually think that we've talked so much about what Arsenal do at left back and Mo Salah. But I think if they set up right, they can win that midfield battle. In which case, if they control the ball, I don't think Liverpool have anything other than the counter-attack threat. I know that's where Mo Salah thrives, but I don't think it's as cut and dry as focusing on Salah. I think if Arsenal I'm not saying don't pay attention to him, but look at other areas where you can dominate, and then you can maybe nullify the Salah effect that way instead of directly.
It is Kai Havertz for me in this game. If he can drop into areas that Van Dijk and Konate don't want to go into and pull them. I remember Chelsea when we used to play with a false nine. Kai Havertz used to do it for Chelsea. He used to play as a false nine against Liverpool and pull Van Dijk into areas that he doesn't want to go to. And then you might have joy in terms of he plays out wide. And like you mentioned, Martinelli will be crucial as well because you said he's come back into it. I want to see him be better in decisive moments.
Agreed. Yeah.
I saw Jadon Sancho up against Trent and he didn't test him physically. I think Martinelli can do that, like you say, high and wide and get in behind Trent. But when it comes to those decisive key moments, I remember at Anfield a couple of seasons ago where he could have played that pass. And there are certain moments where Martinelli just doesn't make the right decision. We saw it against Bournemouth last week. But in terms of his attributes, he's got everything you need to trouble Trent. I think this is the worst kind of player for Trent to deal with. But it's just a case of, you remember when Liverpool were in their pomp and sometimes Salah wouldn't have it, sometimes Mane wouldn't have it, but Firmino would cause the problems. I think Havertz has to do that Firmino role against Liverpool tomorrow or on the weekend.
All right, let's get score predictions. Harry, we'll start with you.
Arsenal 2, Liverpool 0.
Nil. Crazy.
Arsenal 1, Liverpool 3.
I'm going to go 1-1.
Sitting on the fence,
mate. Get off of it.